Welcome everybody back to another Bullcast Reaction. I'm Carson.
I'm Lindsay.
And this is the episode of Hell's Paradise that we've all been waiting for. This week, it will really go crazy. Everyone's been saying that. Not just this week, but every week they've been saying that. But this week, I mean, everybody's been hyping it up.
I can feel it.
It's going to go insane this episode. So stay tuned for that. Let's check it out. I'm so excited. What if this is actually like the craziest
this is the
episode?
Demon Slayer episode 19.
I mean, it was, yeah, this is that. What it realistically, like, it could be, because the bath episode was last episode, so maybe it's like turning over to the new flashback. Oh, the cool guy that was, is a feminist, Chad feminist. Oh, the cameo, the stick that was beating that one person from that other show. It just looked like the same stick, am I wrong? You thought the same thing.
I'm not laughing at this, it's just so dumb.
I mean, he's just beating up a bunch of samurai shitheads.
You won't find one at all, unfortunately.
You need to do this before you start thinking about marriage. He doesn't even deny. Oh, shit. What do they call the TENZA?
This is just gonna get killed immediately.
What if they just die?
I like the music right now.
Oh, damn.
Let's try to run away before
He regenerates.
Yeah. That was pretty sick, actually. Who's gonna show up right in front of them?
So we can work this out, alright? Who's that? Blind man?
And if you could take the head and, like, keep it away from the body.
Yeah, we always say this whenever there's somebody like this. It's just like, I mean, they could probably just regrow the head. Like,
potentially, but I mean, you never know.
You never know.
I guess it's worth a shot.
That's what we said with Oken. It's like, cut off the head and mail it to China. Like, I don't trust it.
Maybe that's actually good in a place like this. You can't get distracted.
Shion.
先の立ち筋すぎて動きが雑だ。ああいう相手はまず首か足を狙え。噂も音でわかる。一等の所作を丁寧に。こんな時ですね。なんか逆にホッとしたっす。お前の爪の甘さも治らんな。まったく。
Just shows up again right now because they didn't really do that much.
Yeah, and then they
it.
just stopped. They just stopped and are talking.
自分の役割を終え、 帰路に着いたのだが
When you realized you couldn't leave.
Oh, didn't sense anything
島の外
beyond.
への海流が見つからず方々を探していたのだ
He's a serious bad. He's gonna sail into the open ocean as a blind man, going off feeling alone, feeling of the current.
音と気配でなさすがに盲目の私一人では限界があると思い同じく帰路に着くものを探していたそこ連れてってください3人ならなんとかなりますよああそうかもなだがその前に
何してるんすか先生
今度はお前がなぜ罪人をかばっている規則違反や想定外の事態なら即刻罪人を処刑しろと言われたはずだ私はそうした
Oh right, right. I thought that he might have been with her, but
処刑したせめて苦しまぬやり方でなお前はその罪人に肩入れ
she
して
tried to seduce me, so I executed her as cleanly as possible.
私が処刑し一発のことを言うようになったな先生の影響っす
He's kind of an Anakin figure. Like he was taken in by this order a little bit too old to like, you know, be brainwashed by the rules. So he has like a sense of duty to it, but maybe he'll go all crazy like that as well. That would be a really cool
He'll
turn
go
for the
and
character.
kill all the younglings.
Or maybe he'll like, you know, I mean, Anakin's kind of like Gon if you think about it.
Just like a little bit too
Yeah.
hot-headed for his own good.
Yeah.
あるいはお前を危険にさらすならその時はなんだ彼女ってよくわかりましたねわかる
I like just the little slap.
ですねそういう冗談
では早速先生の言う海流へ行ってみましょう大声を出すな
Yeah, just shouting out, "Oh yeah, we're gonna go over here."
At this point, it wouldn't matter. They've been sitting here
Yeah,
talking
that's
for a
true.
half hour in real time.
Yeah.
さっきの要領でいけそうっすけどね
Yeah,
it's like it took that long. This is like a manga thing, is what that is. If you were reading that, that would have been like a couple seconds. Oh shit!
Holy shit! And he was
Is he gonna
protecting
live?
her.
I keep thinking people are going to like get immortal, but it just keeps not happening, and people just keep fucking dying. Become Tan. Good luck with that.
Ah.
He could die here. It's over. No way. What?
Holy shit!
What?
God damn it! They're always killing off the characters that I like.
They've killed off like half the cast already.
それ以外の時間は人助けに使いたい。まあ確かに。
It's like all those guys are dead. Everyone in there is dead.
何？やめてやれよ。こんな堅苦しい生活は真っ平だ。俺は好きに生きたいんだ。本気で言っているのか。ああ。だったら条件がある。条件？いつどんな時でもいい。私から一歩を言ってみせろ。もしできたらお前が辞めるのを認めよう。
He really just said no. You can't quit. I quit. No, you don't. Fuck.
Everyone's like, "Yes, you may quit."
You may
However,
quit. On one condition. It's like, why do I need to fall? I'm not dealing with you. I don't need to make a deal with you. I'm leaving.
I'm leaving.
Who says I don't have to walk with you? Goodbye.
ここに眠るのはかつてのシオンの弟でしょった男だ。名は鉄心。結局鉄心は好きに生きると言い捨てて道場に
And
出て
died immediately.
しばらく何も変わらない日々が続いた。同じようにシオンはお試し御用に出かけ罪人の前に立った。
Oh.
I was gonna say, yeah.
しかし振り上げた刀を
Who's the psycho who made him do it?
Yeah, that's pretty shitty.
先生はどうしたんですか？
His
切
duty.
ったさ。山田朝右衛門として。
He did his duty is what he
はっきり
did.
と鉄心の最後の言葉を聞いた。無頼者として生きれば、いずれ同じ末路をたどるかもしれん。お前がそうやっていと感じたんだろう。
お前も同じだ。可能性というつぼみが花開く時が必ず来る。
どうする？お前は一本も取らずにこのまま逃げ出すのか？
天座か。
先生、立ち会い稽古をしてくれ。
ほう、以前とは違うようだな。
今まで何かに真面目に打ち込んだことなんてなかった。でも、もう一回。
See, I'm liking this more and more, but like we just saw him get mortally wounded. So it's I think it's supposed to be tragic, but it just kind of feels like
この人から一本を取りたい。
like
Like a setup. Unless he
it just feels
somehow
unless he
survives.
somehow survives, but it just feels kind of wasted. Like it feels like this should have been before we saw him die.
Yes,
to
you could
get all
really,
this.
really like him.
But I get it might be that like they're trying to make us like him after, so that it's more tragic because we know that he's dead and all this is for nothing. Is that it? Like I don't know. It just doesn't hit the same because I know that this is going nowhere and he's dead.
指先が冷たくなっていく。そうか。俺、死ぬのか。みんなここで、この化け物に殺されるのか。
絶対させねえ。俺が死んでも二人は逃がす。どんなやり方でもいい。全力で時間を稼げ。来ちゃダメだ。逃げろ。逃げてくれ。
He can feel that that's what he wants.
二人とも逃げて。ダメだ先生。勝てない。
Oh, is he really gonna try? No.
喉がやられて声が出ねえ。
No, dude.
出てくれ。一言でいい。
Oh, is he gonna put him out of his misery? No.
No. I thought maybe that's what he was gonna do.
Is he gonna be mute too now?
That would really suck.
先生、すみません。目をかけてもらったのに。ヌルガイさん、生きてくれ。君には可能性がある。可能性、俺にはどんな。
Aww.
しぶとかった。
They're gonna catch up, right? Like, how long have they been running?
神だ。これが座の望みだ。それ以上だ。同じくする仲間だ。彼、死をとすか覚悟、無駄にできるか。今は奴に勝てない。あのままでは全員死んでいた。一旦引くしかなかった。だが必ず落とす前はつけ。
So he did have the option to leave, but he chose to stay.
But by that point, he was into it enough that he wants to stay. Yeah.
あとはお前の好きにしなさい。これからも俺に剣を教え。いや、先生からも自分に剣を教えてくださいっす。 もちろんだ。
I thought it was gonna show like one of the green buds like just fall. That would be sad because he didn't
He didn't fully.
he didn't fully reach his potential. So what'd you think of that?
That other guy has really bad luck. Whatever his name is, with the guy with no eyes.
Yeah.
Just like all of his students just die every time. I actually really liked this episode.
You did?
Yeah, did you not?
I liked it. I thought it was good. I thought it was maybe a step up. I did think it was a bit over dramatic, given like Naragai's reaction to it is a bit over dramatic, given that they've again like there's just not enough time for these characters to have bonded this deeply. Like for Naragai to be like screaming and like freaking out that like Tenza's dead. They had maybe one conversation that like they kind of connected. I can understand her being sad.
They've been together for like 2 to 3 days at this point, I think.
But like how we saw their one like connective point, and it was like they had that conversation, and then they walked on the beach.
Yeah, that's
and then
true.
they got attacked, and it's like that happened 2 seconds. That happened maybe an hour before this.
That's true.
You know, like or a day max, and that's my only problem is just like I could have felt like when everything was going on, I was like, wow, this is kind of affecting me a lot more than I thought it would. Like when we saw him like actually dying, but then when Naragai's like freaking out and when all this stuff's happening, I'm just like, it's just all. It felt over dramatic. It felt like it was all played for like to have this like big explosive thing, but they didn't put in the legwork beforehand. Instead, they like established they showed us the characters beforehand. They showed their relationship, and then and then it was just all flashback and exposition after we already knew the outcome. And I get the storytelling sort of, you know, like I said, like the whole point is like we know he's going to die, but we get all the flashback and then we care about it. And it's not like an uncommon thing in shonen to do that, but it feels like, because, and again, if we had more interactions of them just hanging out and like again surviving, being in the environment, living through all of this, then it would hit a lot more. And not just backstory. I don't need backstory, just them being characters on the screen and like interacting and building their relationship. And then, you know, then we can get the flashback that like, and then it hits hard because like even if they spent like a week together or less, like a few more days, or just a few, give me a few more scenes,
a little bit more, yeah.
And they don't need to have an extensive backstory. I liked seeing all of this. It just feels like they're fast tracking so much that not just like the pacing of the show. It's not just the pacing of the show. It's like the attachment. The attachment. It's like, you know, why are they so attached to each other? Like I get that they had like a moment of connection, but you don't have one conversation with somebody where you kind of connect on a deeper level. I think the thing
was that even before, like they had been trying to escape together even before we saw, like when we first saw them, they were like on the boat escaping because he felt bad for her and that a child didn't deserve to be there, and he was already trying to rescue her, like off screen before that. So then when we get this backstory of like, oh, he must have seen like, oh, because he was like shown mercy as a criminal child, that he kind of wanted to do the same thing. Yeah. And was looking out for her, and obviously she really appreciated that because she's just been screwed over so many times before of like, oh, well, you know, oh, where you live or whatever, and then, you know, takes everyone there and they all get killed.
Yeah.
And it's so I do think that there's more than one conversation there, but yeah, I do also think maybe I would have liked to see a little bit more, like see them like hanging out, see some of the like the conversation with Gabimaru and Sagiri when they were leaving the bath of last episode, when they were just kind of like before they were like, oh yeah, and now we're getting into it, like before that when they were just like hanging out. Or like with the two brothers a couple of times, like they're with them, it seemed like there was a couple of scenes of them just like hanging out, or I don't know, just like and I guess what I'm trying to say is it doesn't have to be like these character interactions that make them have a bond don't have to be like these very dramatic, super in their feelings,
exactly,
life or death, or like discussing heavy topics. Like with Sagiri, before we complained a little bit too much that they were going really into her backstory and so heavy into her feelings. And I guess I feel like what I'm missing with this show is just some moments of people just existing, and I think
being
that
human,
just being alive and being themselves in a genuine way, and like forming a connection based on not only sharing the way that they feel and the way and like who they are verbally, but also just being together in this situation that has brung all of these different people to this island. Everyone is here for a different reason, but this place is kind of bringing them together. Like, so I feel like I can see what you're saying of like everything does, and it also feels like we're getting like, so there's so many, like they killed off half the people, but it still kind of feels like a bloated cast of like we're not I feel like I get so into this character's story, and then we probably won't see them again for a couple episodes. Or same with the brothers, like I don't know, it was kind of, their backstory was super interesting, that the one joined up for the other one, and then we saw them, and then they get dumped into this pit, and then we have to wait again to see what happens to them.
It feels like they're like, I feel like a lot of the issues that we point out with the show and with the story is a lot of it, we try to make the distinction as much as possible between like this is an adaptation thing and maybe it's different in the manga, but at this point it seems like a lot of these things, they're symptoms of the manga world, from what I understand. And I'm not I'm more of an expert. I'm not an expert in anything, but I'm more familiar with like criticizing anime than I am with manga. I'm not as much of a manga guy, but from what I know, it's a lot of these things are like symptoms of the weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly like manga release schedule, and how cutthroat the manga industry is. So like, if you're an author, you're trying to write like big emotional payoffs as quickly as possible. Like that, there's a big incentive to have these big, dramatic, violent moments, a lot of character deaths, a lot of like build up and then death. It seems like this was written to be like a Game of Thronesy, like anyone can die at any moment. It doesn't matter how developed they are, main character. There's all these different stories kind of interconnected. They're all in a similar area, and they can cross paths or go and do their own thing. It's like that's kind of, it seems like it maybe it's even inspired by Game of Thrones. I don't know the author's thing, but the author's inspirations, but it feels like that. It feels like because of how the manga industry works, these are all symptoms of that. It's like, I need to hook people. I need to, if you're sitting down, like put yourself in the author's shoes, like you're sitting down to write the story. You want to have like, edgy, cool main character who's also like really deep, and like you can have these conversations where he like cuts deep and there's like emotional connection there. You want to have these deep like emotional breakthroughs because they're these big cathartic moments that like kind of really amplify the action. And there's it's just so far the show has just been like one after another of these, because it's cutting between all these stories and it can't focus on one particular character or story. So then if we're cutting back and forth in order to have like these big moments without like, a series worth of build up, you need to kind of force these things. And that's where a lot of the worst, not all of Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer's actually gotten a lot better, I've seen, as the series goes along. But like early Demon Slayer was a lot like this too, where it's just like, I have no investment, and
it's just back to back of things that I'm supposed to care about, but I don't.
And it's like that you don't care about it, and then they give you the backstory. Oh, now I'm supposed to care, and it works for a lot of people, and that's why like a lot of people who are watching are probably rolling their eyes every time we shit on this show or other shows, because they don't see it. They feel the investment, but looking at it from the perspective that we are, it's like, I think that's it. I think that it's not just an adaptation thing. It's just the way that the story is written. It's created to facilitate these moments. And by the way, this like all that, okay, that's fine. And I think it's true for this. But weirdly, despite all that, I actually did I did like this, emotional payoff. Like, and that's the weird thing about it is, it was forced and it was over dramatic. But there was like, a lot that was resonant there. And I feel like the only problem with it is that there wasn't enough time between the characters.
That's what I was going to say. And I was going to say...
Everything else is fine. I really like Shion. I really like Tenza. I really like Narugai. I like their relationship. I can see there's kind of like a Last of Us style.
Yeah.
Like if you think of... Tess. Mm-hmm. It's very much like Tess in this with The Last of Us.
The one person who's really invested in this kid, and then it's like, oh, now you other person who didn't really care about them and wanted to kill them or get rid of them. Yeah. Now you have to be in charge, and then they have
works,
they have a bond, and then he saved her. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. And what I was gonna say.
So the only problem is the previous.
Yeah. Well, what I was gonna say about it is I think. And why we keep talking about it rather than just letting it slide is because a lot of these individual stories of these characters is really cool.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many amazing ideas. Like, all of these different, like, character pairs could be their own show.
Yeah.
Like, this could be its own show of, like, the student... takes on kind of their own student after they got put in this position and they breaking the rules, and then their master shows up and is like, no, you can't do that. But because the master cares about their student so much, then they make an exception themselves and continue on doing what they need to do. Like, that is a great story. Same with the brothers, of the one brother gets captured, and then the other one goes and trains undercover, like literally goes as an undercover cop, and then to be the one in charge of that execution, so they can that's huge dedication. And then even still, they're not safe because they get sent here. It's so crazy. And then Gabimaru, same thing, of like this guy who cares about his wife, and like all of these could be their own separate shows that like all of the characters are genuinely interesting. The problem is I feel like I'm not getting enough of them to truly
justify
care.
their interactions.
It's that all of the moments are good, but I feel like because we're jumping around so much, and it wouldn't be a problem to jump around so much if it was just done over a longer period of time, where I felt like I truly cared about all of the characters. This one, I do agree, I felt more in this episode than probably every other episode other than maybe the first one.
Yeah, same.
Because it felt genuine. And it's interesting as well too when what's her name again? Narugai. When she, like, the voice acting for her was really good, and I felt like the voice acting for her fit like the stakes that they were trying to make, even though it felt maybe a little bit over dramatic in terms of like our caring about these characters, but it felt accurate for her character. But then it's interesting as well because I was just noticing when they were drawing her face, like, it just looks so unenthusiastic. And I think that's also what made it not fit. I'm like, this guy looks like his face looks really intense, and she just kind of looks like her face is drawn and then her mouth is moving.
Yeah, there's not the emotion's not coming through in the visuals.
Yeah, the voice actor did such an amazing job of like really selling it. Like that, like that's kind of what makes you feel it, is when there's like this child screaming because this person that was protecting them and cared about them is getting killed right in front of their eyes. And that's like universally, like, it's done in so many different things, and like the way that they sell it really matters.
I think the performance was good, but it's just it just doesn't. I just don't feel it like on an internal level. Like I and again, it's like if everything like this happened like this, but there was just more before this of them hanging out and more time, and not just more time. Like, skip to them, fighting another thing, and then it feels like we only ever skip to one of these other things when there's a fight, when there's like something big going on, and it's like that to me doesn't endear me to the characters. What endears me is the small moments and like them having other things to do. It's just like we're going from fight to, if we're not with Gabimaru and Sagiri talking, then we're cutting to the other people and fighting. We're not cutting to them and like talking or trying to get food or trying to like actually explore or understand their surroundings. It's like it feels too. It might be a consequence of just the pacing of the overall story, but it's just everything is too functional. Everything is too like I need to grab the, like, this is what I'm saying. Like, it's all from a manga writer's perspective. Like, I need to keep the reader invested. I need to keep the reader interested. I need to keep showing fights. I need to keep showing these big emotional breakthroughs. And you lose what makes those things matter if you try to focus on those too much. But it feels like they're constantly like, it feels like the author's like desperate for our attention to the point where they're like, not that they aren't writing good things. It's just like, okay, I want to write the story, but like I need to make sure that the audience is like focused on and listening and focused on what I'm saying.
Paying attention to
I need to make sure they
exactly
come
what I'm
back.
saying.
I need to make sure they come back because like it just feels desperate. It feels like everything that's happening could be good over a long time. It's just that they are worried about getting canceled. Their manga getting canceled. Maybe this is my inference, but it's like that's the feeling that I'm getting constantly from this, and it just feels like it could be actually good and actually interesting if there just wasn't that fear coming through, this like constant need for approval and reinforcement from the audience, this constant like worry that they're going to stop
just
watching
like,
if you don't show them what you think they want to see.
Just like every scene, it's either fights or they're discussing something. They're not like talking.
Yeah.
They're not like
They're
give not talking
exposition
for the sake of like how you and I would have a normal conversation if we were just in the kitchen or something. They're like every time characters interact, it is a business meeting that directly propels the plot in a verbal way. Yeah.
That's the problem, and it's something that I think a lot of people maybe don't think about with storytelling, and it's something that I think about a lot, and it's something that I think people like don't. Again, it's like a lot of times I complain about some people are like people don't get it. They don't see it the same way I do, and there's so much loaded into how I see things like this that I struggle to communicate it every single time because I don't want to bore everybody, and it's just a big thing. But it's just exposition telling isn't storytelling. Storytelling isn't telling. It's showing us the world. It's showing us the interactions with the characters. If you just give us exposition and do world building and all that, like when in the other times where it's not fighting, or just showing character backstory. In this, it was a good example of using a flashback good, I suppose, even if, I kind of question it. I don't disagree with it necessarily how it was used in this episode. I just question it. But, a lot of people, I think, especially today, there's so much fantasy and there's so much other worlds and all this stuff. There's so much, it's become a big convention that world building is like important, that world building and the science aspect and the explanations behind magic systems and worlds and everything. It's like all of this stuff. We need to categorize everything and break it down and like have this, fill the world with all of this information. And then the problem with that is you get to this point where, you're either in action or you're in exposition. And there's not a merger or a mix of both or a build where information is like given and revealed and shown and explored or pieces here and there and then it's connected through like action or something. Mm-hmm. Instead, it's, you coldly set everything up. And so that's why, we don't get these like true moments of character interaction. It feels like it's character action that is or character discussion, that the discussion is exposition setting up their big emotional payoff later. It's not like for the sake of exploring the character. It's telling the audience what we need to know so that when these things happen, when these big explosive payoffs happen, this is especially with Sagiri, which I know isn't the problem with this episode, but it's sort of a common thing throughout every episode of the show so far. There's a difference between exposition and storytelling, and there's a difference between character backstory and character. Mm-hmm. That's kind of my point, I guess. And this one again, it's like they're so close to having it actually pay off and have it actually make sense, but they're burdened by what feels to me like this desperation to keep the audience's attention.
I also will say something else. In this episode, I actually liked the fight a lot more. Like I felt like the enemy was a little bit more of a threat than pretty much any other fight this entire
What about
thing.
Last episode where the brothers were fighting? I think the same person or not
it was
the same
a different person.
Different people.
I honestly felt like this one was a little bit more creepier, like the introduction and how they kept like kind of getting away. Like it just felt like there was it just showed how pointless it even kind of was to try and get away, because they kept getting away and then it just kept showing up because it's just so superior to them. Like I felt like there was a like more, we got to see a little bit more of the abilities or of the like discrepancy and how like they are a lot stronger, but they're not that much stronger that you can't get a hit on them. You know what I mean?
Could you imagine if we didn't even have the cut between last time with Groot explaining them and then the brothers fighting, and we just had this instead? Could you imagine how much better of a reveal, like to see these like godly beings instead of getting the taste of it last time with those two making out and then they try to kill the brothers? Mm-hmm. What if and then it's all like the whole thing I were talking about, how it's cutting between like the explanation of it and then it happening, and the explanation kind of ruins the impact of what's going on, because it's like you're going back and forth instead of just like being in the action and being in being in the character's heads, wondering what's going on. You're being told what's going on while it's happening. What if remove that and we just go to this episode instead of last episode?
Yeah.
And it's just like the thing just shows up, and then it's like, holy shit, what is happening? What is this thing? It's walking on water. It's talking about all this stuff. And we already had a kind of idea of what we'd be running into based on the opening and based on the context clues of the whole island and everything. But what if this happened first and all the shit, and then we go and meet Groot and all that stuff and get all that information?
And
that's way better.
Actually, that would be cool. It would be cool if it was this first. We get this introduction of this one. We see immediately like they're so quiet, they're so fast, they can like transform and mutilate their body and get all these veins and like cut your throat out and shit, and
because we got all that information last time.
We got all it, but I feel like the presentation here, to me at least, had a little bit more impact. I was more intrigued and more focused on it. And I feel like, maybe you're right that it would have been cool to have this episode first. There's like the touching down on water thing. And then we go to Tree Dude. He explains it all, blah, blah, blah. We get some Gabimaru Sagiri. We have the bath episode. It's all fine. It's all chill. And then we cut to that scene of them like making out, and then they like creepily turn, and then you're like, there's more of them. You know what I mean? We already know that there's more of them from the OP, but but
in terms of the reveal, it seems like we got a huge dump. Again, this is like the problem. Like
the story, info dump.
The exposition telling a story isn't the same as storytelling. And that's what was happening, is they're telling us all this information, telling us what's going on. Mm-hmm. And then we got all, like I was saying, we got all the same information this time. We got everything about how they regenerate, about how, but we got even more of it last time. So then when we see it this time, it's not really surprising. It's kind of,
I think surprising. It's a little bit.
It just feels like, imagine if we dealt with all of this without information, and we didn't know about like how they consume the people who come to the island.
Yeah, that's the other thing as well. It's like we don't need to know any of that to know that they're super badass. To see that they can, because we learned all the same stuff other than like the details of how they do things in this episode, and I feel like that was kind of. I feel like you're right. Maybe it would have been cool just to see them in action,
shockingly,
completely separately.
Yeah.
You have no idea what's going on. They get their head cut off, and you're like, "Is that it?" No, they're regenerating. You know what I mean? And there's all the stuff, and like you just see, they can do cool powers, and like I don't know where any of it comes from, and just to see like one by themselves, and then you don't know how many there are, or like what their relationship is to each other.
A counter argument could be that, and this is probably why it was done this way, and this is something I genuinely don't agree with, and I think is a worse decision, the way that it was actually done in the show. I think it should have been done the way that we're saying. Genuinely, I think it would have been actually better. But the counter argument would be like, they gave us that information so that we were afraid in this one. So like they explain everything, take all the mystery away of the interaction, and then they give us something that like we see this similar thing, and we're like, oh, this is something to be afraid of. Like we know that this is scary, but we know, we don't need to know all that other information to know that this godly, creepy creature that's changing genders and like, cutting people's throats out with and like using force magic to like just poke holes in people. We don't need to know. And we literally see them get their head cut off. We don't need to know all that exposition to know that this thing regenerating is like otherworldly and terrifying, and that this is like a scary thing. you know, that in a way that makes it worse because it's not unknown. Now we went into this knowing so much, and then it was kind of, again, it's like it's expected. What happened was expected because you set our expectations beforehand. If you and especially with the whole Game of Thrones approach to death that the show's taking, it's like if you set our expectations beforehand, then you can't surprise us when somebody dies.
I also was going to say, it's interesting as well that this one specifically came after them because it could see that they had been like, the people had been like killing stuff all over the island and was like, oh, I'm going to go check it out and see who's around here and deal with them. So they stopped messing up this place, which is different compared to last episode where they stumbled upon two of them just like messing around and doing their own thing. Like those two weren't, like, you know, hunting for perpetrators or, you know, didn't have any goal. They were just, they were just making out. This episode, it was interesting because it felt like, oh no, are they all like coming after us now?
Yeah.
That they're all aware. It's like, oh, maybe this one's aware. And then the next time you run into the other ones just like doing something else. And then you're like, oh, these people all have different goals and different,
yes.
And, like
awareness or
you know feelings about it or care about it or you know.
I think it's that still kind of works this way, like showing it the other way because we show and that's one thing in the way that the show did it. It's favor because like we see the first ones, they're unaware, and then we see this one and they are aware and they're like seeking them out. But it's like, so then the question is, in both cases, in the real and the fictional hypothetical version, it's like, what do they want? And that's what the series is trying to make us ask. It's like, what is there? Are they all together? Like, are they all in like a coalition or a group, or are they, you know, separate people and just living their own life? But again, like all of these things could be achieved if it was just reordered. And I think that reorder would do so much for this. Like, I think that the only reason, like, here, think about this, another hypothetical. Like, what if we don't even have TENZA and Narugai at all previously? Like we maybe see them like walking around when everybody's getting introduced and like splitting off going to the forest, but then we have like an episode or two straight of just them, not cutting back to Gabimaru and Sagiri, just their story, them exploring together, them learning to find food, learning about each other. They get in a couple close calls and they save each other's lives and they like are clever, and just them, focused on just them for like 2 episodes. And then he dies. And after spending quality, like close time with these characters, learning about each other, learning about his past, we get some instances like we don't see the flashback, but he talks about being a street rat and being taken in and stuff like that. And then when he's dying, we see that flashback, like sort of filling in the background and like seeing how much it means,
the deeper level.
and then that tragedy that they were going for here, that like it was all for nothing, but it kind of not, because he ended up saving something, he found something to protect. But him like, and that was my thing about this. It's like, you need to find something to protect. It's like, find something to protect. And then for us, it's like, oh, that was Narugai. Wait, Narugai, the child that you met yesterday and are, like, you know, it's like, I'm okay with them having that relationship. Again, it's just not built up. And then, so back to what I was saying, this hypothetical, you cut away from Gabimaru, 2 episodes, you get all this. We have no idea about, you know, the extent of these creatures. Like, we maybe see like one kind of creature. Don't even spoil that there's like all these giants with Gabimaru and all these crazy fish creatures and stuff. We see maybe they go and they see bugs or something. And then we get a cutaway to the samurai guy and he cuts off his hand, or we see Gabimaru and they're dealing with like some of the poisonous shit. And then again, this is like a gradual thing. They're like, this is like the story where the misstep in the story so far has been like jumping into like big monsters, big fights, big powers, all this shit, instead of just like this slow burn or these build up little releases of information. So we then cut away to them, and then we're exploring them, and then we get in close calls, and then we see the monsters from their perspective, away from Gabimaru. Now we have information that Gabimaru and his crew doesn't have when we go back to them. Yeah. So then we can see their reaction to it. So then they get some close calls and they see these monsters, and then they're like, holy shit, this place is crazy. And then we see what are they called? The Tensen? I forget what they're called. Tansen or whatever they're called. The angels creatures. And and then we get that, and now we now know the way more dangers about the island. We know about these like godly beings and stuff that Gabimaru's crew doesn't know, and we got this big emotional payoff and a setup with Shion and Narugai now being this Joel and Ellie duo together, having this mutual loss of Tenza, who has been built up between the both of them, and now going forward it's the same. It's Narugai and Shion have a bond, and there's going to be a master student relationship there, and it would go on the same from there. And then we cut back to Gabimaru, and and then we see them have like kind of come across maybe his headband. They come across his headband, they pick it up, and they're like, well, "Oh, this is Tenza's." I wonder if he made it. Sigiri like picks it up or whatever, and then and it's just like it's the same. It's like backstory, but it's relevant to what's going on, and it's not telling us all of this shit about it before we get to see it. And then it's all these big reveals, and it can play out basically the same way. It's just reordering the events and not having this thing where
like giving a bit more time to breathe to each.
Just not being desperate about it, not being so worried about like I need to keep the story fresh. So I'm going to have fights, and I'm going to cut to this fight with this person. I'm going to cut to this fight with this person. I'm going to give all this backstory and exposition and flashbacks, cut to these flashbacks so that this person's death lands really well. The only thing you have to sacrifice is this like Game of Thrones, like I set up all these characters across this wide area. They all have different perspectives. They all have different stories, and they could die at any moment. And that seems to be the kind of conceit that the author's going with. And it's just unfortunate because you don't need to do that. If you just gave up on that kind of idea and just told the story that you're telling without having this like weird presentational gimmick of cutting back and forth between all these people, focus on each story, focus on each of the relationships, give them the time that they deserve. 2 episodes of them together. We already had the 2 episodes, but again, it was split over the course of things. Yeah. And if we just had like focus in maybe 3 episodes, focus in on them, and then it will land better. If we feel like we're hanging out with them and not just like watching them discover the island and like...
Oh, we saw them for like 2 minutes while they fought this crazy sea monster, and then we saw them again for like 1 second on the beach, and then something happened.
It's not giving it its due, and it's because of, I think, this fear of losing the audience's attention, and like this desire to throw as many like thing, like kind of not like he's not throwing like big emotional things at us. They're just like, okay, this and this, and just keep the content coming and keep the reveals coming, keep the this and that, and explain it. It could be presented so much better, and it would be the same story. It would just be reordered and just better presented in general if it was just more focused on each moment instead of trying to
I
keep
think it would be
your attention span going.
I think the main thing is a lot of people I've seen in the comments are like, the characters in this are so good, they're so well developed, and I think that people are kind of half right. I think all of the characters are great in theory. Like I think all of like when you're coming up with a character, like all of these characters are awesome as something that you just came up with, but the execution of it doesn't hit as hard because there's not enough time, or not enough, it's just not done in the right way to actually make real compelling characters and use them in the right way, because that I think this is what we've been trying to get at. It's like the characters are awesome. Gabimaru, cool character. Sigiri, awesome character. All of these guys, the brothers, everyone so far has been a really cool character on paper. They're epic. It's like, oh, this guy, and he has his brother, and he went undercover, and it's the same thing that I keep saying. It's like all of their individual stories are so cool, but they're just not playing out as good as I think they could be. They're not really playing out at all. They're not really playing out. They're just being told to us, and then they die or something.
It's like you're right. It's like all the concepts conceptually. There's that, and that's why I was excited going into this, because conceptually everything about this is striking and incredible. But it's just like once we actually have to get past the premise, and once we actually have to get past just the initial setup and like the death game and the island and all of the character basic relationships, once they need to develop and change, they change they do as in ways end up changing, like with Tenza dying here and everything. But like it's like fast tracking, and it's like it feels like it's following a script. It feels like you came up with a bunch of these cool characters, and then you're just doing
You knew exactly what you wanted to do with them, and
you're
then
doing the
just
dynamic thing. You're doing the thing where you create the change in your story, but it just feels so unearned, and it just feels like it feels hollow. It feels like Gabimaru the Hollow. Maybe that's what his nickname means. And that's the most disappointing part, because it's the like. I feel like I really hit a breakthrough talking about the show this time, with the whole reordering of events, because if you just give a little bit more time, a little bit more space, and just give up on this thing of cutting between it, Game of Thrones style, then everything just flows so much better, and the information could be presented a lot better without needing people to tell you what's going on, or have the guy with the glasses like, oh, and religious thing, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of cool, but I'd rather not be told. I'd rather us experience this and learn things as we go along, not front load me with all this stuff so that we can get to the point. Because where this is going, I think, is and it's going there really fast. It's all of this stuff of the environment is going to become secondary, and it's all going to be a fight between the TENZA or whatever they're called, the angel creatures.
Yeah.
That's where it's going. It's all of this stuff, all the setup of getting here, and okay, we established the dangers of the place. We really are establishing that you can't leave, and that's it. You're stuck here, and you have to do this, and here's the rings, and here's we need to go in. Here's one stage, and then once we get past that, there's the next stage, and this is going to be this season. This is going to be that season. This is going to be these episodes, and it's just too much telling. It's just too much telling. That's it. It's just they don't. The characters need to be able to be people and not just tools to get to the next point of exposition, yeah but I hope all of this doesn't detract from the fact that what we're really saying is that this one did hit a lot harder. This experience did hit a lot harder with these characters, but there's still just that one thing missing, and these couple things that are just it feels a little bit forced.
It's interesting because I think before we talked about Seven Seeds, I'm not sure, or we compared that to something, maybe it was actually to Heavenly Delusion, we were talking about Seven Seeds or something like that. But the actual execution of this, to me, is very reminiscent of Seven Seeds, because I really liked that show, and it had a lot of cool ideas.
Nobody knows what Seven Seeds
if you know what it is. I think the manga was really popular.
Not to the people watching the show.
I guess maybe not. But it kind of had a similar thing where some moments and some there's that one episode. There was a couple episodes and a couple characters that were so cool, and then the rest of it just kind of kept working against itself, and where the concept was amazing and it could have been so much more, and there was some moments that really hit, but then there was some that didn't because similar reasons to here. And I just thought I'd say that because it really reminds me of that, and it's just kind of disappointing to see.
And that's the biggest thing. It is disappointing. It's not I just wish people got that too. Is I feel like I'm walking on eggshells whenever I could criticize shit these days, and forever. It's just because I don't think people understand that we don't want it to be bad. I feel like people don't get that when we talk about it like this. It's not that we want. I feel like people also are just they want us to react emotionally to everything, and they people look for emotional reactions and big reactions, and it just I just feel, and then I feel I need to justify, and we end up making an hour-long video instead of a 30-minute one, because I feel like it's worth justifying, but I also, I just wish that people could take our criticism for what it's worth, and that I didn't feel I'm pissing people off by talking about it like this, because it's just, it's just how I feel, and it's just how we feel, it's just how we genuinely interpret it, and I don't feel like it's wrong, but I don't know. I just feel I feel like I'm always just disappointing people. When with stuff like this, and I really just want to try and have a discussion about it, but I know that some people, I guess those people aren't even watching at this point, but yeah. Anyway,
leave
see
a
you
like
guys next
and subscribe.
Week, or don't.
Bye.
Bye.